Hi. Today I'm looking at, if you can see it, the bore, the 3 Morse taper bore in my spindle. Now I've got it running on low speed. This cheap indicator, it leaves a lot to be desired, but you can see that it's moving around 1,000. Now, as I move the carriage in, obviously it changes, but it still is about 1,000th off center. So you can see my issue with this. Anyways, it seems to be a fairly true 3 Morse taper, except for being off axis. So I got run out. This showed up at first with my test bar, and I proceeded to check the whatever you call it, index faces, that the external the chuck screws on and hits first this surface and then this one. They seem to be running pretty true. So it appears that when they made my spindle, they did it on 2 different machines and they were sloppy. Now, one way is to replace the spindle, and I would run the risk of having another off-center spindle, off-center Morse taper. I don't quite know what to do about it. I've got a tool post grinder I could run in there. However, the Morse taper, as you can see, is pretty long. This is a number 2 taper, but you get the idea. So in order to grind this all the way in, I think it might be kind of tough. I don't know. I've got to think about this some more. Another alternative, which I have been thinking about, is, now this is a number 3 Morse taper, obviously. On my mini lathe, I had some concentricity issues, so I put a mark, a prick punch in a surface, and then I mark the chuck. So I always go in the same 3 holes to mount the chuck. I could do the same thing with this. I could take a little grinder and make a divot someplace out here where it'll never hit, and then regrind the angle. That would do for getting a more accurate dead center. The dead center would have to be dedicated to this machine and mounted in the same orientation each time. But I don't know, there's issues there. The same thing with the Morse taper ER32 chucks. It would have to be marked and installed and then reground to center, and then I'm stuck with it, you know, dedicated to this machine. Has anybody bought a spindle for these machines? This happens to be an Inco. It also looks like a Jet, and it looks like a Grizzly, and you know, I bought Grizzly parts and they seem to work fine so far. Any thoughts? Anybody? Any criticisms? Somebody give me some ideas. I don't really want to replace the spindle on this machine, as that would set me back a long way. The axis of the spindle in the headstock is slightly rotated to the rear. Now that's fairly easily addressed. Loosening the hold down bolts. I can slide in shims front here and rear on the back side, and then retighten it down and hope for the best. I've gone through that with the mini lathe. It, believe me, is a pain in the butt. Everything depends on everything else. I found with the mini lathe, I had to put the shims in, and then I had to really tighten the headstock down to flatten the shims and get it. And I finally did get the headstock pretty well straight on the mini lathe. You know, it's a process. The truth is, if I wanted a better lathe, I would have been spending, you know, a few $1,000s on a hard hinge or another American lathe that you know, hopefully isn't worn too bad from heavy production shop use. Anyways, there you go. I just thought you might be interested.